I watched my mother and father pull out of the driveway through a large living room window, waving shamelessly and smiling to them as they left. I turned and sighed to myself, the fake smile quickly leaving my face. It was about time I got this house to myself. I'd been living in it for 16 years, and they hadn't even trusted with me for more than a few hours at a time. Living in a suburb in Nova Scotia, just about the friendliest place of the already well-known friendly Canada, and they can't trust a straight arrow like me with the house for a day. That is, until now. A legitimate smile now twisting my cheeks. Finally, I had a full day, a night to myself. Just me, my Xbox, and a shit ton of junk food. I was planning on living with diabetes by the end of the endeavor. I turned away from the window knowing exactly what my plan of action was. It was of course to take my Xbox from my TV in my room to the larger one in the living room. As I passed by the kitchen, I caught a glance at the large bowl of fruit my mother always insisted keeping full. She thought it gave the family a healthier vibe. I scoffed at the idea of needing a bowl of anything other than chips, and emptied the entire thing into the garbage, a simple but meaningful symbolic victory for my independence. I settled in, starting my day off with some Halo, and letting my iTunes library blur into my ears at the level that certainly wasn't called for with the already loud TV. But after a few hours of playing, something caught my eye. In the reflection of the TV, I couldn't sworn I saw something move in my kitchen. I focused in on the spot on the TV for a second, of course trying to see if I could see it again, before a loud bang shot through the living room. Shit. I mumbled under my breath. My killing spree was abruptly ended by a combination of distraction and an enemy sniper. I quickly took note of his gamer tag and put him on my list for a good teabagging later. Before too long, I got tired of the colorful explosions flashing on the screen, and nothing the time, just after midnight, I figured I'd call it an early night, get a good early start at doing whatever the hell I wanted tomorrow. I retired to my bed, just down the hallway, stripping down to my boxers as I walked, throwing my clothes into the hamper as I passed it. I hopped into bed, intent on getting some rest and giving my eyes a break from the trauma I put them through while they were locked on the screen for hours on end. It wasn't long after I had my lights were off and my eyes were shut, however, I heard a quiet wheezing coming from behind my closed door. I tried to chalk off the sound to my overactive imagination. Or maybe I had left something on out in the living room that was still making sounds, but the noise was clear enough that neither of those explanations won me over. I don't know if it was the noise getting louder, or if I was just listening closer, but the wheezing definitely became more pronounced, and as it got clearer, it quickened as well. Now, I don't care how active my imagination is, but every night I thought I heard something in my closet or under my bed. I was never as frightened as I was as I heard that sound. My heart was pounding as I stared at my door handle, praying that whoever was making that sound wasn't brave enough to enter. After a few agonizing slow minutes, the noise slowly started to quiet back down. Or so I thought for the first few seconds. As the sound lessened, it was accompanied by a quiet, shuffling sound, and it was made apparent to me that whoever was on the other side of my door wasn't coming down. They were just sulking back into the shadows of my home. I didn't sleep that night, not a wink. I don't think anyone could after hearing what I did. There was the rare time I took my eyes off my door, just to keep driving myself insane. But before long, they were trained right back on the doorknob. It's strange how the first sunlight I saw affected my mindset. Suddenly things became less tense in my mind, even though in hindsight it really shouldn't have. Outside, a deep sleep, deep sigh, and grabbed my cell phone. 2% battery. Fantastic. The first number I dialed as my father's, even though it was barely 6 o'clock in the morning. My father greeted me with an albeit ugly hello. "Dad," I whispered in a hushed hysterics. "Huh?" He responded slowly, obviously very much asleep. "Dad, there is someone in this fucking house. I mean it," I said sternly behind clenched teeth. "You were up all night reading those stories again? What time is it? Christ, get some sleep." Suddenly, I heard a bang resound throughout the house. From the kitchen, every hair on the back of my neck snapped to the fucking attention. "Right there! Didn't you fucking hear that?" I berate him, hoping somehow my phone had picked up the crash. He let out a heavy sigh. He mumbled, "Get some rest," before hanging up. A wave of despair washed over me. I could call him again in a few hours, but all I would get is a speech about how it wasn't right to leave me home alone if I was going to get scared, so scared. I wish they hadn't left at this point. It was only 6 in the morning and they weren't due back until 8 p.m. I was pretty fucked in one of two ways, really. One, whoever was tearing up my house up there would come in and do whatever random murderers do, or I was stuck in this room staring at my door for 14 hours. I was really regretting not calling the cops with that 2% I had left. I didn't move for a very long time. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon before I finally gained the courage to creep off my bed, reasoning that whoever was in the house must have left by now, seeing as I hadn't heard anything else. I felt like I was walking on broken glass. It stood to reason in my terrified mind that one errant creak in the floorboards would send the assailant into a wild frenzy of murderous rage. I opened my door very slowly, peeking out more and more as my door opened wider. I found nothing out of the ordinary in the hallway, other than the fruit bowl sitting upside down in the center of it. I suddenly saw one of the home phones sitting on its holster at the far end of the living room. My key to salvation. I darted for it before finally seeing what was in my house standing in my kitchen. To my left, its eyes locked on me. People say life isn't just black and white, and sure, they're right in some respects. I mean, every asshole has to have some redeeming quality. Not all Outriders are taking time bombs, right? Gray areas, but then there are some things that are black and white. This was not a gray moment. This was black, utterly terrifying in every sense of a word. No gray areas about it. This person, for lack of a better term, looked at me. It had all the characteristics of a man, but they were all wrong. In my shocked stupor, I got a good look at it. It was only, at my best guess, 5 feet tall, but it was much wider than he should have been, probably about half as wide as it was tall. Its proportions were all wrong, not to mention its head. It was massive compared to its otherwise frail-looking body, easily reaching his shoulders widthwise and coming down to its mid-torso lengthwise. The limbs looked weak though. Its arms were much too short and skinny to have any power behind them, and its legs were far too short and spindly as well. Its pure black eyes were far too small for its huge face, and were dragged down by the heavy bags under them, and were complemented well by the few wisp hairs on its head. But its most striking and terrifying attribute was its massive jaw and teeth. The jaw was proportional to its head, surprisingly, which made it huge, but the teeth didn't make sense. In its huge gaping smile, I could only see about 12 teeth in total. There was huge gaps in between them, and each one, both top and bottom, were, in my guess, about twice as long as my middle finger. You would think that I'm frail, but I wasn't interested in finding out. It wheezed loudly as it looked at me, tracking my motionless body with its tiny eyes. It looked tired, lethargic even. I choked down some saliva before I noticed it shift its weight forward, and that was all I needed to snap out of my shock and send my sprinting back down the hallway. It followed quickly. Thundering steps were close behind me the whole way. It was so much faster than it looked like it could be. I slammed my door behind me and slammed myself up against my door, only having one push from the monster before I could shut it completely and pressed myself against it as hard as I could. It didn't push back after it ran into the door, but it didn't retreat. As I held myself against the door, I heard the same wheezing I did the night before, but this time much more angry and aggressive. It was as if whatever it was had its huge forehead pressed up against the door and was just waiting. I swore under my breath a few times. I was pretty fucked, trapped in my room with Mr. fucking Longjaw out there. It was only a few more hours until my parents got home, though, and they could do something about it. Or could they? This was the most menacing thing I even physically seen. What if they were just too shocked and they were mauled before they could do anything? Even though I knew my parents could be walking into the death trap, I didn't move. I made no heroic efforts to try and hurt it or remove it from the house. I just stood there, my weight slouched against the door, in a wide-eyed genuine terror as it wheezed through the door. And so began another long stretch of time where I remained still, locked in a stalemate with my new housemate. I glanced over to my digital clock every now and then as time crawled by. At the time of 6:46, the glorious sound of my parents' station wagon pulling into the driveway filled my ears, and with it the wheezing stopped. Suddenly I heard its booming steps run away from my door and back towards the kitchen before they abruptly stopped. It's waiting for them, my only thought. As I heard the screen door open, a great, powerful urge hit me to help them. I needed to. They were my parents. I finally whipped my door open and ran down the hallway. I was met with a surprise. My parents, calmly and quietly putting their things down, a creature nowhere in sight. As my father went back out to the car, my mother looked towards me and smiled a motherly smile. Before she very visibly tense up, and my heart jumped to my throat. She slowly walked behind me and picked up the fruit bowl resting on the ground. Without a word, she went to the fridge and began to fill it back up, looking back towards me now with a very uneasy smile. 3:47 p.m. August 4th, 1973. My name is Kevin Matthews. I am at the Matthews Lakeside cabin in Black Rock Park, which I received in my dad's will. I'm writing this to document my odd findings of my family's lake house. I've been looking at the real estate ads in the papers to get a good idea of how much I can get out of this place. I then looked through some old newspapers and read articles about murders and strange unexplainable occurrences at a cabin by the Lake Merchant called Camp Matt. After hearing of this, I had to get answers. 9:14 p.m. August 5th, 1973. Today I spoke to someone who witnessed some phenomena. A man named Clausen Annadale. Mr. Annadale said that he was staying at Camp Matt for about 3 days, and on the third night, he said he saw a man standing under the tall oak out front, staring into the cabin windows. Another odd thing, Clausen said that the man was wearing the same clothes that he was imitating him. Another Ruth Oakley found her husband, Dylan, stabbed to death under the tall oak at Camp Matt in 1953. She swore her innocence to the police that she had nothing to do with his death, but the only prints found on the knife were hers, and she claims she only touched the knife after pulling it out of her husband's. She also told the police that she locked the doors at night, but they were unlocked from the inside in the morning. After hearing about this tall oak out front most times, I realized this was no coincidence. Through more research, I found that Camp Matt was the name of this place up until 1954. Clausen encounter what happened in 1952, roots in 53s. I'm staying at the crime scene only 3 years younger than myself. This changes my whole perspective on things. 9 o'clock a.m., August 7th. I saw that man Mr. Anadale described through the window, but this time he was dressed just like me. Blue jeans with a hole on the right knee, plaid shirt, and a ripped up baseball cap. He didn't budge at all. Every hour or so, I would wake up just to see him standing there in the exact same spot under the tree. I can't call the police. I can't leave. I fear for my life. August 9th. Time unknown. There is no longer any electricity in the lake house. I tried to leave when it was daylight outside, but when I opened the door, it was night, and the man was still standing there. I think he's holding an axe. August 11th. It's morning again, I think. My watch says it's 5:13 p.m., but that's most likely false. I've been trying to keep track of the date, but this has all been very confusing. I think it's been 6 days. I tried over and over to leave during the day when it's safe, but every time I open the door, it's fucking nighttime. My watch says 5:13 p.m., but it could be 9:35 p.m. or 3:18 a.m. or 11:29 p.m. or any other time other than 5:13 p.m. I've placed myself in an inescapable house, and the nearest telephone is 34 miles away in the unknown. I'm helpless. Time unknown, date unknown. I can no longer keep track of the date. I looked out the window and saw 8 corpses wrapped in sheets hung upside down on the branches of the tree, and they were soaked in blood. The man with the axe is still in his spot, waiting for me to step out of here. I run out of options. I'm going outside. Time unknown, date unknown. I'm outside. I stood in the light of the lamp mounted on the tree. I keep seeing a man inside the house. He keeps staring at me through the windows. He looks exactly like me. I found an axe at the tree's base. The man in the house is an imposter. He will come out of there, and when he does, it'll be over. I'd like to thank the one who made them stories, the writers. I'd like to thank you for writing them, and all credits to them. And I'm the one who just narrates the story. And please excuse the language. It's the writers who made that. And I'd like to thank the one who made the music, myuuji. And thank you very much for making those music. Those who like creepypastas, I try my best to make them scary as I can. And if you guys are not scared enough of the stories, I guess I'm not trying hard enough. Anyways, thank you for watching the videos. Thank you everybody. Thank you very, very much for watching the videos. And happy Halloween.